Hey guys, today I'm going to be testing out some Dollar Tree yarn. I have a few different skeins of Dollar Tree yarn. These two are just, I have a yellow and a brown, and they're just kind of like this fuzzy yarn. I don't really know what type of yarn this would be categorized as. It says it's a weight 4, but it just feels so thin that I think it would be closer to like a 2 or a 3 maybe, but it really does not feel as thick as a weight 4, but that's what it's classified as. And then I have some chenille yarn from Dollar Tree. I got 3 browns and 1 white, and this honestly doesn't seem bad. I am pretty excited for this one. I think this is gonna turn out pretty good. It does not seem very much different than most of the other velvet or chenille yarns that I use. So my plan is I'm gonna make 2 plushies. Plushies are the main things that I make, and I have also seen other like acrylic or maybe cotton yarn at Dollar Tree, but I just decided not to get those because they just kind of seem like any other acrylic, you know? There's lots of cheap acrylics out there and they're all kind of about the same, and I just really wanted to see how well these fuzzy yarns were gonna do. This yellow and brown that are more the fuzzy ones, these were actually gifted to me, but I think they will be very fun to test out anyway. And then most of my plushies that I make, I usually make with chenille yarn. So my plan is I'm gonna make 2 plushies, one with the fuzzy yarn and then the other with chenille yarn. And I already have decided what plushies I wanna make. One of them is gonna be a free pattern that I found on Instagram of a little capybara, which I think would be really cute to make with acrylic yarn too and put it on like a little keychain. But since this yarn is so thin, also ignore how messed up this looks. This is actually not how it came. This is just from me throwing it in a basket with all my other yarn and it got messed up. But anyway, I would like to make some more capybaras with the acrylic yarn and turn them into keychains, but since this yarn is so thin, I think it would also work really good and might actually turn out even smaller and possibly work better for a keychain. For the chenille yarn, I bought 3 browns because brown is just one of those colors that I can never find in store. The only brown chenille yarn I've ever gotten has been ordered online, and it actually is a darker brown than this, and so I just wanted to have a little left over and maybe so that I can make multiple too. And then white, I only got 1 just because I already do have some white chenille yarn and that is a color that I can find more often, but for the sake of the video I wanted to actually use the Dollar Tree one and not my own. And so for the chenille yarn, I am going to be making a longhorn, and I do have one longhorn pattern that I purchased, but that one is just a very big pattern, I want to say. I made a smaller one with acrylic yarn and it turned out like a decent size, but when I made it with chenille yarn, it was pretty big, and I mean it looked very cute. It is a very cute pattern, I do love it, but it's just so much crocheting. It just takes so long to make. So I want to try and write my own. I've only written a few patterns before. I mean like a decent amount, but they've all been very simple. Even my more complicated one was just kind of me freehand crocheting almost and just writing down the steps of what I did. So I'm a little nervous and excited to try and write my own longhorn pattern because I have an idea of how I want to do it, and also because I want it to be as little sewing as possible, and I think that's going to be the hardest part. But we'll see when we get there. So first I am going to start with the capybara with these 2 colors in this fuzzy yarn, and I will update you how it goes. Okay, so there's a slight change of plans. It's not even that much later, but I went to pull up the capybara pattern and it's there, but it's not a complete pattern. It only shows like 4 rows of it, and it's not even the beginning. It's like the middle of the pattern or something. I don't know. So I'm like, whatever. I tried to find like the person who owns it's like other Instagram and stuff and see if they had it on there, and it's just not fully complete. So I'm basically just gonna instead just take inspiration from this and go like, this is gonna be kind of what I want it to look like. But I guess I'm just gonna write my own pattern because it honestly is very simple. I'm not exactly sure how I'm gonna do it yet. We'll just see how it turns out, but I'm just not even gonna read the pattern. Like, I'm like, well, it's not even complete, so I'm just not gonna do it. And I tried to find some other ones, but there's just not really any other ones that I like. You get the gist, that's the inspiration. I want it to just be a simple, kind of like a little blob with like a head and the body. That's the inspiration, so we'll see. I'll write it myself, and if it turns out well, then I guess I'll post it for you guys. Normally for all my other weight 4 yarns, when I make plushies, I use a 3.5 millimeter, but this yarn just feels way thinner than those, so I'm thinking I'm gonna have to go down to maybe a 2.5. I don't know, I'm probably gonna have to size down like a whole size, I'm thinking. So we'll see. I'm gonna spend a little while getting started on this and then give y'all an update. Okay, first update. I did not think about how difficult it is to crochet with fuzzy yarn, simply because I've never done it before. So it was probably a little bit silly of me to start out with this, but honestly, I think it's going okay. Honestly, the yarn itself is not that bad. It's not super fragile. Like I'm pulling this and pushing on it kind of hard. I'm not scared that it's gonna break, so that's good. It's just very difficult to crochet with since it's fuzzy yarn, but I feel like that's something that you get with any fuzzy yarn. But I guess I don't really have anything to compare it to. Oh my gosh, I'm folding this inside out. I've been showing you guys this inside out this whole time. There you go. That's what it looks like so far. I also think part of the reason that I didn't realize how difficult this would be is because I've seen so many videos of people talking about like how difficult it is to crochet with chenille yarn, and I'm like, that's not difficult at all to me. Like even when I first started crocheting with chenille yarn, I could still see my stitches very well. Like I could tell what I was doing. And then people are like, especially black chenille yarn. But even when I've crocheted with black chenille yarn, I can still see my stitches very well. So I just never really thought about it with fuzzy yarn until I started doing it. And I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So point being, I am writing my pattern down how it's supposed to be, but my stitches aren't adding up. Because I can't tell where the stitches are, so I'm just kind of sticking my hook in there and hoping that it's right. I think it would have been a little smarter to start making this with acrylic yarn, but I just want to go straight into the video. Like I want to do the Dollar Tree yarn. So I don't feel like making an entire new plushie just to write a pattern and then just to make a second one. Like I'm just gonna wing it. And it might look a little wonky in the end, but that's okay, because that's not really the point of the video. The point is for me to tell you how good the yarn is. And so far, I mean, I don't have any complaints other than the fact that fuzzy yarn is just difficult to crochet with because you can't see your stitches. Now, I don't have any other fuzzy yarn experience besides this, so I don't know for sure, but I think maybe if it was thicker, I'd be able to feel the stitches better. So that's one thing maybe to note. That's all I have for now, and I will get back to you when I have a little more progress done. Okay, very quick update just because I am excited. This is the head. Okay, I feel like this looks better in person than it does on camera. Also, I got to row 9, and this is where I'm just gonna stop writing because I think that's probably gonna be the first row that I really have to make adjustments to. This is kind of the point where I'm just gonna not write it anymore because it's just not gonna be accurate, and I don't wanna have to scratch it all out and restart. You know, I think writing it is making this take way longer than it needs to, and I want to just crochet it and get it all done. I do think it's looking cute though, because it'll be even cuter when I add the eyes. But I basically just started doing decreases up here, and then I just did regular single crochets underneath, and now I'm doing increases underneath for the neck and decreases at the top. It's the next day, as you can probably tell by the daylight coming in through the windows. It's not nighttime anymore. And I finished the capybara last night, but I'm not gonna show it just yet. I'm gonna save it to show you at the end. So now I am gonna move on to the chenille yarn, and I'm gonna try and write my own pattern. And this one, I should be able to actually see my stitches and hopefully get the full pattern written. And maybe afterwards, if there's some adjustments I need to make, that's fine. So we're just gonna wing it and see how it turns out. I haven't even gotten fully started yet, and I already ran into a problem. Now, I know this is a common problem with chenille yarn, where it's really difficult to tighten the magic circle, just because chenille yarn is a little easier to break and stuff, and I'm gonna try it a couple more times, but that's what happened, and it very easily can be, like, I'm just pulling the fuzzies off. All of that. It's just coming off so easily. So I don't really know how well that's gonna work. I'm just so disappointed because before you tug on it, really, it looks normal. It looks just like any other chenille yarn and it feels good. So we'll see. I'll try it a couple more times, and if it doesn't work, then I'll just have to not do a magic ring. But that is quite unfortunate that you can so easily just peel off these fuzzies. Oh well. I got it to work in the magic ring. Just being very careful with it, very slowly. Normally I just kind of grab it by the end of the stitch and just pull it till it's tight. This one I had to go like kind of just scoot each stitch all the way through very carefully, but it worked. That's all that matters. It worked. Sorry for the angle, but quick update. I'm working on the legs, but every time I start a project with a magic ring, after I've completed a little bit of it, like a few rows or whatever, then I just turn it inside out, and I always weave in my ends from the magic ring first on the inside of my plushie, because, you know, that's not something that people actually write out and say to do in like patterns and tutorials and stuff, but I think it should be, because whenever I first started making them, I obviously wasn't doing that because I didn't know that you should do that, and by the time I'd be done with the plushie, the hole from the magic ring would already be open, and I'm like, well dang, because then the tail of it is on the inside of the plushie, so there's no way to go back and fix it. Since I am doing that, I was hoping that weaving in the ends would be fine, but it's basically doing the same thing as before. So I only got it through one stitch before I had to start actually just ripping these fuzzies off, because it just kept getting stuck. Now that I've got about half of the fuzzies ripped off, I am hoping that maybe that'll work better. Yeah, see, now it's going through like that, and then we'll see. Nope. It just gets stuck. I guess I'm not gonna be able to weave it in another time. This is not working. And that just ripped off even more fuzzies. Hopefully it'll be fine. That's so far my only issue with this yarn. It actually feels nice. It's very soft and it feels nice to crochet with. So the only issue is that you can't do any kind of sewing with it. You can barely tighten a magic ring with it. It's very finicky. Okay, I think I figured out a way to weave in the ends without it breaking, because I tried it a few times and it's been working so far. I've found that basically when you go to put the yarn through your needle, a lot of the times I will just pull it about, like give a good tail so it doesn't come apart, and then I'll pull it through multiple stitches. I found one going through only one loop at a time, and then also the main thing that I think helps is just barely having it in there. This is where I'm at right now. What I'm gonna do, you see how it's just barely in the eye of the needle? I'm gonna try and do this backwards so I can actually show y'all. And I'm only through one loop of yarn. It worked! And so now it's just straight through. And you just pull it and just go slow. Obviously you can see it didn't have to be too slow, but if you're just careful with it and you do it like that, it works. And then I try and pull it a little bit tighter, and by doing that, like I have started fraying a tiny bit throughout it, but it's not that bad. So honestly, so far I actually am not too mad at this yarn. I've been crocheting this for a while, and I have never made a plushie where like the arms are crocheted in, and I wanted to try and figure out how to do it myself. It is not looking too good. I'm happy with how the legs and the body look, but then the arms just ended up pointing so much upwards, and I want them to be down like this. And so that's the main issue that I have, and I don't like it. So I'm gonna just frog it back down to before I started the arms, and then maybe just decrease a couple more rows and then just start the head. My dog, hello. Mwah. Hello. He's so cute. When it comes to frogging, I don't really know why, but it actually works pretty well without the yarn ripping. it doesn't make sense to me, but for some reason when I try to use it for sewing and weaving in my ends, it wants to rip. But for frogging, it doesn't. So, I mean, I guess that's a good thing. Okay, it's the same day, but I have a different shirt on because I ended up going out earlier, and while I was out, I meant to buy more stuffing and I forgot. So I completely ran out, and I also ran out of scraps to put along with the stuffing. This is how far I got, which is not bad. I guess I can keep crocheting the rest of the parts, but I won't be able to actually finish it tonight since I don't have stuffing. I'll just have to wait till tomorrow to get more stuffing. But yeah, I ran out of stuffing. Okay, it's about 3 days later, and I have not filmed anything in between now and the last clips you saw because I have not really made much progress on this longhorn, but also I ran out of stuffing, so I had to go buy more, and then I just got busy doing a bunch of other stuff, so. But now, I did go to Hobby Lobby like a couple days ago, and this is how far I've gotten on the longhorn, which I think I showed you before. I just need to finish stuffing the head. Before I close it, I am gonna add the eyes. But also, before I do that, I have to add the mouth so that I know where to put the eyes. And then I already made the horns and the arms. So all that's left to crochet is the ears. But before I do that, I am gonna go ahead and stuff and sew everything together just because I'd rather do that first. But also once I have everything together, then I can gauge how big to make the ears because I don't want to end up making them too big and then have to remake them once I see how everything looks all together. And honestly, I think I made the head a little too small. I'm gonna go ahead and probably finish this, and then I'll get back to you and show you the final results, and then we'll talk about the quality of the yarn. I know it's going to be a lot more difficult to sew everything on with the actual chenille yarn, so I am going to use this cotton yarn to sew it all together. Hopefully it's not that noticeable, but that can also be something that we talk about at the end. I just finished the longhorn, so now it is time for the final reveal. First, my derpy little capybara. He's so long! I made his neck way too long, and then also I didn't make his body thick enough. Those are like the only things that I think I really need to change in this pattern. I think I probably will make the ears bigger too because they don't really like stick up enough. I still think he's cute. He's just very derpy, but that's okay. And the longhorn, he's so cute. Now for this pattern, there's really only a couple things that I want to change. I like the body. The things I want to change are going to be, I want to make the head just bigger. I just think it doesn't really look proportionate, you know? The head just needs to be bigger. The arms need to be a little less stuffed, but also I want to make them a little more kind of like longer and like more tapered when it gets closer to the base of the arm. They just look very like round and bulbous, you know? Also, by the way, I got my nails redone yesterday. That was part of me being busy the last couple days, so yeah, that's why they're different now. But anyway, so we've got the head, the arms, and then I do think the hair is a little bit short. I thought it was the right length as I was making it, but then when I was done, I was like, oh, it's kind of short. Like he kind of looks like he's got a big forehead. So I want to make the hair longer, but then also with me making the head bigger, I definitely will need to make the hair longer. And for the hair, it's all just a bunch of loops like this of just a chain, and I just chained 10 for this, and so I think the next time I'll make it, I'll probably chain 15 instead. And it's just like 3 rows of 5 loops. So we've got 5, 5, and 5. 15 loops total, and it's all just a bunch of chain 10s. But yeah, I still think he's really cute. Even though he's not quite perfect yet, he still is very cute, and he definitely looks like a longhorn. Okay, so I don't have a super big pros and cons list because there's really only just a couple points that I want to make for each yarn. Also, it's starting to storm right now, so sorry if you can hear the thunder. So I want to start with the fuzzy yarn, which was these 2 colors. I only had these 2 skeins of yarn, and obviously I didn't use much of it since I just made this teeny tiny little plushie. So the main things I have to say about this yarn is that it is very thin. Some of these things might also just be common things in most fuzzy yarns. I just don't have a whole lot of experience with fuzzy yarn, so I just figured I'd point them out anyway. It is thin, like you can kind of see here how thin it is. So you really have to size down on your hook. Normally for plushies that I make with weight 4 yarn, which on the label this does say that it's weight 4 yarn, I normally use a 3.5 millimeter, but I sized down to a 2.5 millimeter, which I think was fine. Obviously my stitches don't look super loose, like you can't even see them at all. But if I would have done a 3.5 millimeter hook, I think it just would have been a little looser stitches than I would have wanted. That is one thing. It is very thin, but it doesn't break easily, which is kind of the main thing that I wanted to test with this Dollar Tree yarn. Like, how does it feel to crochet with it? Is it breakable? Like, what issues do I have? And the only issues that I had was that since it's so fuzzy, I cannot see my stitches at all. And I'm sure with pretty much any other kind of fuzzy yarn, I most likely would not be able to see my stitches either. But then again, you know, different brands here and there, you can see stitches better, some you can't see them as well, so this is one you cannot see them at all. The last thing that I'll say about this, which I think I mentioned earlier, is that I do think that it would be really good for like a border of something. Maybe if I made like a bucket hat and wanted to do a border of fuzzy yarn, you know? That way, whatever you're making, you can see the stitches of the last row of your project with whatever yarn you normally used. And then when you're crocheting with this, you could see the stitches that you're crocheting into, and it would just be like the last row that you do as a border. So that is what I think it would be very useful for. So I probably will hold on to these for a little bit until the fall when I start making some more fall colored things, because I just have yellow and brown. I think they're very good fall colors. So I probably won't be using them again for a little while until the fall. And then I think after fall, if I still have a good amount left, I might just scrap them and use them for stuffing, because I do not like to waste yarn. But hopefully I'll get a good amount of use out of them before I end up scrapping them and using them as stuffing. I would rate this yarn probably like a 8 out of 10. I'd give it a solid 8, just because of the difficulty of fuzzy yarn. I'm just not a huge fan of fuzzy yarn in general. One thing I will say is it is very soft. Both of these yarns, both the fuzzy and chenille, are very, very soft. If that is something that you're worried about, don't be, because it is soft. It is not scratchy at all. But overall, I do think it is a pretty decent yarn, so I'd give it an 8. Now, for the chenille yarn, I originally bought 3 browns, and then I only bought 1 white. And the reason I chose white was just because I knew that I was gonna make a longhorn. I would prefer to do more of like a cream color, like a cream or a tan for the mouth and the horns, but they didn't have that, which is fine because that is a little more of an odd color. They mainly just had like white and black, and then a few like pretty kind of pastel colors, and then brown. So one thing I will say that is good is that they had brown. I can never find brown chenille yarn or brown velvet yarn anywhere in store, or tan even, or even like a cream color for this. Like, I can never find that color anywhere. So Dollar Tree definitely gets some points for having brown. I love that. On the downside, this yarn is very easily breakable. Since it's easily breakable, it is also not good for sewing, because when you put the yarn through your yarn needle and you try to pull it through, it just like gets stuck, because instead of it pulling the yarn through, it's basically just pushing these fuzzies down in the thing and clumping them together. And so at the end of your thing, I can easily rip them off like that. Like, look at that. It makes it very difficult to do a magic circle. I was successfully able to do the magic circle, what, like 6 times? Sorry, the storm's picking up. It's getting a little noisier. I'll try to be fast though. It is possible. And it would also be possible to sew with them. However, it's just really difficult, and that's why I am gonna rate this yarn a little bit lower. And it does still get points for being really soft. Like I said, both of these yarns are very soft. But I am gonna give this one like a 5 out of 10, just because of how easily it breaks. Also, part of the reason why I feel like it's not as good quality is since the yarn is not good for sewing, I used this cotton yarn to sew it together. And when you look closely, mainly at the arms, you can see the white there. Yeah, you can see the tiny little bits of white peeking out. You can't see it as much on the horns or the mouth just because those are also white, so it's less noticeable. But if you look, like, I can tell. I feel like a 5 out of 10 is a pretty fair rating because it is cute. It is very soft yarn and it was fine to crochet with. Also, like I mentioned earlier, since it does break easily, I was surprised that the times that I had to go back and frog the yarn, it actually worked really well. There were some times when it gets stuck a little bit, but you just give it a little tug, kind of maneuver a little bit, and it still frogs like very well. I did not have any issues with the yarn breaking as I was frogging it. The only times I had issues with it breaking was when I was trying to tighten a magic circle, and then also when I was trying to sew and like weave in ends. It was very difficult. 5 out of 10, maybe a 6 at best, just because I mean it is soft and once it's done, I don't think it's really gonna break. I think it's fine. I mean, unless you're literally like trying to rip it apart, you know, we'll give it a 5.5. We'll go in between. 5.5 out of 10. All right, now the storm is getting kind of loud, so I'm gonna go. And also, as I mentioned, these are both my own patterns that I just started writing. I was just kind of freehanding both of these. And then later on, I will perfect them and I will definitely post this one as a free pattern on my Instagram. So go follow me on Instagram if you want to be up to date with all of my free patterns that I post on there, and then also get to see when this one comes out. And then this one, I most likely will post on my Etsy as a PDF pattern, because I do also want to make other variations with a regular horn, with and without hair, and then with and without spots. So this one's gonna be a little more complex and a lot longer of a pattern, so that one will probably be going on my Etsy. So with all of those notes, definitely think about it and make your own decision of whether or not you want to try Dollar Tree yarn or if it's something you would use regularly. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I appreciate each and every single one of you here. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you want, and I will see you next time. Bye!